My wife told her mother, "That fat hippo disgusts me. I'm only interested in his fortune." I acted like I didn't hear. But the next day, I sold my $3.4 million home and then disappeared, clearing all accounts and leaving only a note. The snow had been falling for 3 hours when I heard her say it. Not the gentle Christmas card kind of snow that makes everything look clean and forgiving. This was January snow in Boston, sharp, persistent, the kind that gets into your bones and stays there. I'd come home early from the office because the roads were getting bad. My Mercedes SUV handling the slick streets better than most cars. But still, I wanted to be safe, wanted to be home. I'd stopped in the mudroom to take off my boots, my hands fumbling with the laces because my fingers were half numb from the cold. And the heating system in our Beacon Hill townhouse was state of the art, of course. I'd paid $3.4 million for the place 2 years ago and another half million in renovations. But the mudroom was always a little cooler than the rest of the house. Catherine liked it that way, said it was more authentic to the period architecture. Catherine liked a lot of things about appearances. I'd heard voices from the kitchen, that warm, honey-toned room where she entertained her mother at least 3 times a week. The kitchen had been Catherine's pet project during the renovation. Marble countertops imported from Carrera, custom cabinets that cost more than most people's cars, a La Cornue range that she'd used maybe a dozen times in 2 years. But it photographed beautifully, which was what mattered. Her Instagram followers loved it. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. That's the part I keep coming back to in the long nights that followed. I wasn't sneaking around my own house, wasn't pressing my ear to doors or creeping through hallways. I was just taking off my boots, my coat, getting ready to walk into my kitchen and kiss my wife hello, maybe make some hot chocolate like I used to do when we were first married. That's when I heard Patricia's voice, my mother-in-law, though I'd never been quite sure she thought of me as family. "Darling, you look exhausted. Is he working you too hard with all these social obligations?" Catherine's laugh. I knew that laugh. The one that wasn't quite real. The one she used when she was about to say something she thought was clever. "Mother, please. The obligations are fine. It's him I can barely stand anymore." I should have walked in then. Should have made my presence known, coughed, called out something. But my hand had frozen on my boot, and I found myself standing there in the mudroom like a statue, like something carved from the same marble as Catherine's precious countertops. "Catherine." Patricia's voice had dropped, taken on that conspiratorial tone I'd heard 100 times before. Usually when they thought I was out of earshot. Usually when they were discussing which of their friends had gained weight or gotten a bad facelift or bought a car that was too gaudy for their tax bracket. "I mean it, Mother. That fat hippo disgusts me. Absolutely disgusts me. I can barely stand to look at him anymore, let alone—" She trailed off, but I could hear the shudder in her voice. "I'm only interested in his fortune. The rest of him, I'd throw it all away if I could." The silence that followed was deafening. Not from them. They laughed. Patricia made some comment about enduring for the lifestyle, and Catherine said something about a spa weekend in the Berkshires, and they moved on to discussing whether the Hendersons' daughter's engagement ring was a real Tiffany or a convincing knockoff. The silence was mine. It filled my head like cotton, like that January snow piling up outside until I couldn't hear anything else, couldn't think anything else. Just those words over and over. That fat hippo disgusts me. I'm only interested in his fortune. I don't remember finishing with my boots. Don't remember walking back out to my car, starting the engine, driving away from that beautiful townhouse with its perfect kitchen and its lying heart. I just remember the snow and the silence and the way my hands shook on the steering wheel as I drove through the white blind streets with nowhere to go. Because here's the thing about being called a fat hippo by the woman who promised to love you in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer. You already know it's true. I'd put on weight since the wedding, 60 pounds, maybe 70. The stress of building my business, the long hours, the meals eaten at my desk or in my car. Catherine had stopped cooking, not that she'd ever really cooked, and I'd fallen into a routine of takeout and delivery, of comfort food that comforted nothing. My suits had been let out twice. My face in the mirror looked like a stranger's, jowly, tired, older than my 42 years. I knew all of this, had known it every time I looked in a mirror, every time I climbed a flight of stairs and found myself winded, Every time I caught Catherine's expression when she thought I wasn't looking, that mix of disappointment and calculation that I'd trained myself not to see. But hearing it said out loud, hearing it said to her mother with such casual cruelty, such utter disdain, that was different. That changed everything. I ended up at a Starbucks in Cambridge, one of those anonymous corporate spaces where nobody knows your name and nobody cares why you're sitting in a corner booth at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday, staring at nothing. The barista was young, maybe 20, with purple hair and a nose ring, and the kind of easy confidence I remembered having once before the weight of building an empire had settled onto my shoulders and into my gut. Rough day? She asked, and I realized that I'd been staring at the menu for 5 minutes without ordering. Something like that, I managed. Well, whatever it is, I recommend the darkest roast we've got and a chocolate croissant. Sometimes you just need to lean into the bad day, you know? I ordered both, found my corner booth, and pulled out my phone. I had 47 unread emails, 3 missed calls from Catherine, probably wondering where I was, why I wasn't home to admire whatever dinner reservations she'd made, or charity gala she'd committed us to. 2 texts from my CFO about a deal closing in Singapore. One from my younger brother asking if I was coming to his kid's birthday party this weekend. I ignored all of them and opened my photos instead. There I was 7 years ago at my college roommate's wedding. I'd been the best man. In the photo, I'm laughing at something, my arm around a girl I was dating at the time. Rebecca, I think her name was, or maybe Rachel. I'd been 35, still in the early stages of building my software company, still hungry and lean and full of the kind of naive optimism that comes before success hardens into something else. I weighed maybe 190 in that photo. I ran every morning back then, swam on weekends, played pickup basketball with friends I somehow didn't have time for anymore. I looked happy. I looked like someone who didn't yet know that money could buy you everything except the one thing you actually wanted: someone to love you for who you were, not what you had. I scrolled forward. There, the photo from the month I met Catherine. A charity auction, one of those black tie affairs I'd started attending when my company went public, and suddenly I was on Boston's most eligible lists. She'd been sitting at the table next to mine, a vision in emerald silk, laughing with her friends but watching me over the rim of her champagne glass. I'd thought I was the luckiest man in the world when she gave me her number. In the photo, I looked slightly heavier than the wedding picture, but still fit, still confident, still myself. Then came our engagement photos. I'm noticeably larger here. The first year of dating Catherine had been a whirlwind of fancy restaurants and wine tastings and late nights where I was too tired to go to the gym. But I'm smiling, and she's smiling, and we look like what we were supposed to be: a successful couple, a power couple, the kind of people who appear in the society pages and make other people envious. Our wedding day. I barely recognized myself. Not just because of the weight, though I'd put on another 30 pounds by then, but because of something in my eyes. Something dimmed, something careful. I look like a man who's trying very hard to be who he's supposed to be rather than who he is. And Catherine looks radiant. Of course she does. She'd married well, hadn't she? Married a man worth, I did the mental calculation, probably around $47 million at the time, counting the company valuation, my investment portfolio, the real estate, the trusts. 47 million reasons to smile on your wedding day, 47 million reasons to tolerate a fat hippo. I closed the photos and opened my banking app instead. Some people self-medicate with alcohol or drugs or affairs. I self-medicate with spreadsheets, with the cold comfort of numbers that don't lie, don't pretend, don't call you disgusting while smiling to your face. My personal checking account, 897,000. My savings account, 2.3 million. Investment accounts, 18.7 million in stocks, bonds, and various funds. My retirement accounts, $12 million. The company stock I still held, approximately $28 million current valuation. The Beacon Hill townhouse, $3.4 million mortgage paid off. The vacation house in Martha's Vineyard, $2.1 million also paid off. Various other assets, cars, art, jewelry I'd bought for Catherine, the wine collection I'd been building, the boat I'd purchased and used exactly twice. Conservatively, another $1.5 million. Total net worth, approximately $69 million. $69 million. And my wife was only interested in the money. I started laughing, couldn't help it. The sound came out harsh and strange in the quiet Starbucks, and the purple-haired barista glanced over with concern, but I couldn't stop, because it was so absurd, so perfectly, bitterly absurd. I'd spent my entire adult life building this fortune, working 80-hour weeks, sacrificing everything, my health, my friendships, my happiness, to build something that mattered, something that would last. And I'd ended up married to a woman who looked at me and saw nothing but a fat hippo with a healthy bank account. The laughter died as quickly as it had come, leaving me hollow. I sat there for a long time, watching the snow fall outside the window, watching people hurry past with their heads down and their shoulders hunched against the cold. Regular people, I thought, people with normal jobs and normal marriages and normal problems, people who probably couldn't imagine having $69 million, dollars. People who would think I was insane for feeling sorry for myself. And maybe I was. Maybe this was the price of success. Maybe every rich man in history had faced this same calculation. Was she with you for love or for money? And if you couldn't tell the difference, did it even matter? But I could tell the difference now. That fat hippo disgusts me. Oh, I could tell. My phone buzzed. Catherine again. Where are you? Your brother called. Apparently you're supposed to bring wine to the party this weekend? Why didn't you tell me we had plans? I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. Sorry, meeting ran long. I'll be home soon. A lie. The first of many I would tell over the next few days. Because sitting there in that anonymous Starbucks, watching the snow fall and feeling the weight of my wife's contempt settle into my bones alongside all the other weight I carried, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Wasn't going to demand explanations or apologies or couples counseling. I wasn't going to rage or weep or beg her to see me as something other than a disgusting hippo with a useful fortune. I was going to do something else entirely. I was going to disappear. The plan came to me fully formed, like a program I'd written 1,000 times before. Elegant, efficient, ruthless. I'd built my fortune through software, through understanding systems and finding the gaps in them, the places where information could slip through unseen, where a clever person could make things happen that weren't supposed to happen. I'd spent 20 years learning how to make money appear from nothing. Now I was going to learn how to make it, and myself, disappear. But first, I needed to go home. Needed to act normal, be the fat hippo who didn't know his wife despised him. Needed to keep up the facade just a little longer. The snow had stopped by the time I pulled back into our neighborhood. The streets of Beacon Hill transformed into something from a Victorian postcard. Gas lamps glowing against pristine white. Brick townhouses frosted like gingerbread. The kind of scene that belonged in a tourism brochure. Old money and new money pressed together on these narrow streets. Everyone pretending they'd always lived this way, always belonged here. Catherine had the fireplace going when I came in. She was curled up on our velvet sofa, 12,000, custom made, with a glass of wine and her iPad, probably scrolling through Instagram or planning her next casual post that would take 2 hours and 3 outfit changes to produce. She looked up and smiled. And for just a moment, I wondered if I'd imagined the whole thing. If maybe I'd misheard, misunderstood, let my own insecurities twist something innocent into something cruel. Then I saw it. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The way she assessed me in that single glance, calculating, measuring, finding me wanting but acceptable, as long as the balance in our joint accounts stayed where it was. There you are, she said, her voice warm honey over cold stone. I was starting to worry. The snow's been terrible. Meetings ran late, I said, the lie coming easily now. Sorry, I should have texted. It's fine. She took a sip of her wine, a Bordeaux from my collection naturally, probably a $400 bottle she'd opened without thinking. Mother came by for tea. She said to tell you hello. Of course she did. Patricia was nothing if not careful about appearances. That's nice, I said. How is she? Oh, you know Mother. Busy with her committees and her charity boards. She asked if we'd be attending the Symphony Gala next month. I said of course. Catherine set down her wine glass and stretched, a calculated gesture that showed off the yoga-toned body she maintained at the exclusive studio I paid $500 a month for. We should probably get you a new tuxedo, though. The old one's getting a bit snug. There it was. The casual knife slipped between the ribs so smoothly I almost didn't feel it. Almost. Good idea, I said. I'll make an appointment this week. Perfect. She picked up her iPad again, already moving on. Oh, and your brother called. Something about his son's birthday. I told him we'd bring wine. I'll take care of it. You're sweet. The words were automatic, empty. I'm going to start dinner soon. I thought maybe we'd do that pasta place on Newbury Street. The one with the truffle risotto, translation. She didn't want it to cook, wanted to be seen at an expensive restaurant, wanted me to foot the bill while she picked at her food and told me I should order a salad instead. Sounds great, I said. Let me just change out of these work clothes. I went upstairs to our bedroom, our $4,000 mattress, our Egyptian cotton sheets, our walk-in closet that was bigger than my first apartment, and sat on the edge of the bed, my head in my hands. I could hear Catherine moving around downstairs, humming to herself. Happy, content. Why wouldn't she be? She had everything she wanted, the house, the lifestyle, the Instagram perfect marriage, to a rich man she didn't have to actually love or respect, just tolerate. And I'd given it all to her without question, without reservation. Because I'd thought, what had I thought? That love could be bought, that if I just provide enough, sacrifice enough, gave enough, she'd eventually see me as something more than a wallet with legs? My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, my CFO. Singapore deal closed. 8.12M profit. Champagne tomorrow? $8 million. Pocket change, really, at my level. Another few percentage points added to the pile. Another line item on the balance sheet of a life I'd somehow convinced myself was meaningful. I typed back, rain check, some things I need to handle. Then I opened a new note on my phone and started writing. Step 1, sell the house. Step 2, liquidate assets. Step 3, close accounts. Step 4, disappear. It looks so simple written out like that. 4 steps to unmake a life, 4 steps to vanish like I'd never been there at all. But I'd been in tech long enough to know that the simple solutions were always the hardest to execute. The devil was in the details, in the dependencies, in all the little threads that connected you to the world and had to be cut cleanly, carefully, one by one. I added more notes. Contact divorce attorney. Discreet, out of state. Set up new accounts, offshore, or Cayman, Swiss. Transfer company shares to holding company, cancel credit cards, close joint accounts, forward mail to where? Create shell companies for asset transfer, document everything for legal protection. Timeline, 72 hours, 96. How fast can I move? The businessman in me was already working through the logistics, the sequencing, the optimal path through a complex set of transactions. Because that's what this was, really. Just another deal, another negotiation, another problem to be solved through careful planning and ruthless execution. The only difference was that this time, I was negotiating my way out of my own life. Catherine called up the stairs. Are you ready? I'm starving. 5 minutes, I called back. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror across from our bed. The fat hippo stared back at me, jowly, tired, wearing a $3,000 suit that couldn't hide what I'd become. But behind the weight, behind the exhaustion, I saw something else. Something I'd forgotten was there, buried under all those pounds and all those years of trying to be who Catherine wanted me to be. I saw anger, clean, cold, clarifying anger. And I saw something else, too. The skeleton of the man I used to be. The hungry entrepreneur who'd built a company from nothing, who'd outworked and outsmarted everyone else in his field, who'd made his first million by the time he was 30 because he understood something fundamental about success. You have to be willing to walk away from anything that doesn't serve you. Somewhere along the way, I'd forgotten that lesson. I'd let Catherine and her mother, and the weight of trying to belong in their world, convince me that I was lucky to be tolerated, lucky to be married to a beautiful woman, lucky to be allowed into the gilded cage of Beacon Hill society. I'd forgotten that I was the one with the power here. I was the one with the money. And money, I was about to remind everyone, could disappear just as easily as it appeared. Coming. I went downstairs to have dinner with my wife. The attorney's office was in Providence, far enough from Boston that I wouldn't risk running into anyone I knew, close enough that I could drive there and back in an afternoon without arousing suspicion. I told Catherine I had meetings with a potential investor. She'd barely looked up from her phone. James Kowalski was old school, wood-paneled office, leather chairs, walls lined with law books that he'd probably actually read. He was in his 60s, with silver hair and sharp eyes, and the kind of reputation that came from 40 years of handling messy divorces for people who had a lot to lose. Mr. Thornton, he said, shaking my hand with a grip that was firm, but not aggressive. Thank you for coming all this way. I understand you have a delicate situation. That's putting it mildly. I'd spent the drive rehearsing what I'd say, how much to reveal. But sitting there in his office, looking at this stranger who would soon know more about my life than most of my friends did, I found myself just saying it straight. I want to divorce my wife. But before I do, I need to make sure she can't touch my assets, any of them. And I need it to happen fast. 72 hours, maybe less. Kowalski didn't blink. I see, and does your wife have any reason to believe this is coming? None. As far as she knows, everything's fine. Prenuptial agreement? Yes, a good one, I thought. Anything acquired before the marriage stays separate, and she gets a flat sum if we divorce, $500,000. That's a solid prenup, Kowalski said. But you want to go further. I want to go nuclear. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Tell me what happened. So I did. Told him about the snow, the mudroom, the words I wasn't supposed to hear. Told him about the years of small cruelties I'd ignored. The way Catherine looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching. The marriage that had become a business transaction I was losing money on. When I finished, Kowalski was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Mr. Thornton, I've been practicing family law for 42 years. I've seen every variation of bad marriage you can imagine. But what you're describing, walking away from your entire life in 3 days, that's not just divorce, that's disappearing. And that's complicated. I understand. Do you? He leaned forward. Because here's what you're proposing. Liquidating millions in assets, closing accounts, selling property, all while your wife has no idea what's coming. Even with a prenup, she could claim you're hiding marital assets, acting in bad faith. She could tie you up in court for years. Then tell me how to do it right. Kowalski studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out a yellow legal pad and started writing. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, the prenup works in our favor. You drafted it well, Dave, and she signed it without contestation. That establishes a clear baseline. Second, we're going to document everything, every account, every asset, every dollar. We're going to show that what you're moving is yours and yours alone, acquired before the marriage, or clearly designated as separate property. He kept writing, his pen moving quickly across the page. Third, we're going to act fast but not reckless. You don't sell the house in 72 hours. That raises red flags, looks like you're trying to hide assets. But you can list it. You can start the process. You can transfer funds between your own accounts. That's your right. And you can leave. Leave? Physically leave. Move out. File for divorce immediately. Once you've filed, you're within your rights to manage your own finances however you see fit, as long as you're not hiding marital assets or violating court orders. He slid the legal pad across the desk. It was covered in notes, arrows, a flowchart of the next few days of my life. Here's the timeline. Today, Wednesday, we draft the divorce papers. Tomorrow, Thursday, you list the house, transfer your personal funds to separate accounts, document everything. Friday, you serve her with papers and leave. The house is on the market. The assets are yours and clearly documented as separate property, and you're gone before she can file an injunction or motion. And after, you disappear if you want to. You're a wealthy man, Mr. Thornton. You have options, but you do it legally, cleanly, with documentation that shows you acted in good faith. That way, when this eventually ends up in front of a judge, and it will, you are the one who is honest, transparent, careful. You're not the villain hiding assets. You're the man who got out of a bad marriage with what was rightfully his. I looked at the flowchart. It was elegant, really. A perfect sequence of moves, each one legal, each one defensible, each one leading inexorably to the same conclusion. I would be free. How much is this going to cost me? My retainer is $50,000. Total cost, if things go smoothly and she doesn't contest, maybe $150,000. If she fights, could go higher, but Mr. Thornton, he met my eyes. Something tells me money isn't your primary concern here. He was right, of course. What was $150,000? A rounding error. A line item. Less than I'd spent on renovating Catherine's perfect kitchen that she'd never cooked in. One more thing, I said. The note. Note? I'm going to leave her a note, explaining. I need to know if that's legally stupid. Kowalski frowned. What kind of note? The truth. What I heard, what I know, why I'm leaving. Can I see it first? I pulled out my phone and opened the draft I'd been working on. It was short, brutal, exactly as long as it needed to be. Catherine, I came home early on Tuesday. I heard what you said to your mother. That fat hippo disgusts me. I'm only interested in his fortune. You were right about one thing. I am interested in my fortune too. So I'm taking it with me. The house is being sold, the accounts are being closed, everything that's mine, which is everything that matters, is gone. You'll get what the prenup promised. 500,000. That's more than generous for a woman who married a bank account instead of a person. Don't try to find me. There's nothing left to find. David Kowalski read it twice, then looked up at me. It's not illegal. You're not threatening her, not lying, just stating facts. But Mr. Thornton, this is going to hurt her. Good. I mean really hurt her. Publicly, privately. In ways that might matter. I know. I took the phone back. That's the point. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Okay, then let's get started. Wednesday night, I couldn't sleep. Lay next to Catherine in our expensive bed, listening to her breathe, wondering if she was dreaming, wondering if she ever dreamed about me, or if I only appeared in her nightmares, the fat hippo she'd chained herself to, the price she paid for her perfect life. I'd always been a good sleeper. One of my talents, actually, the ability to shut off my mind, compartmentalize, rest when rest was needed. But that night, my brain wouldn't stop running through the plan, checking for holes, looking for the place where everything could fall apart. At 3 a.m., I gave up and went downstairs to my office. Catherine wouldn't wake up. She took an Ambien every night. Another expense I covered. Another detail of her life that I'd optimized for her comfort, while she'd optimized me out of her heart. My office was the only room in the house that was truly mine. Catherine had decorated everything else, turned our townhouse into a showcase of her taste, her aesthetic, her vision of what a wealthy couple's home should look like. But this room, dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with the tech books I actually read, the degrees I'd actually earned, this was mine. I turned on my computer and opened my master spreadsheet. Everything was there. Every account, every investment, every asset, all mapped out with the kind of obsessive detail that had made me rich in the first place. Time to dismantle an empire. I started with the easy stuff, the joint checking account. We kept 50,000 in there for household expenses, bills, the daily minutia of our life together. I transferred 49,000 to my personal account, leaving just enough to cover the utilities and the insurance payment that would auto-draft next week. Catherine wouldn't notice. She never looked at the account, just used her credit card, my credit card, for everything and assumed the money would be there. It would be, for now. Next, the investment accounts. I had 3 different brokerage firms managing different pieces of my portfolio, a deliberate diversification strategy that was about to pay unexpected dividends. I logged into each one and started moving money. $5 million from Goldman Sachs to a new account I'd opened that afternoon at a boutique firm in New York. $7 million from Morgan Stanley to a Schwab account in my name only. $6.7 million from my main Vanguard account to a new offshore holding company I'd registered but in the Cayman Islands. Every transfer was legal, documented, traceable. Every transfer was from my account to my account, my money to my money. Nothing Catherine could claim. Nothing any judge could question. But she'd notice. Eventually, she'd notice that the joint portfolio we discussed over dinner, our investments, our future, was suddenly just mine. Moved to accounts she didn't have access to, couldn't monitor, couldn't calculate against. The real estate was trickier. I couldn't just transfer the deed of the Beacon Hill townhouse or the Martha's Vineyard vacation home. They were physical assets, and moving them required more than digital transfers. But I could list them, and I could make sure any proceeds went exactly where I wanted them to go. I emailed my real estate agent, Peter Chen, the guy who'd found me the townhouse in the first place, who specialized in high-end properties and discreet sales. Peter, need to list both properties ASAP. Personal situation, need quick sale. Can you come by tomorrow to discuss? Price to move fast but not distressed. I'll explain in person. He'd respond in the morning with questions, concerns, and the usual agent caution about leaving money on the table. I'd tell him whatever he needed to hear. The important thing was getting the process started, getting the listings active, making it clear that this wasn't hiding assets. This was managing them, selling them, as was my right. By 5 a.m., I'd moved or initiated transfers for 31 million in liquid assets. The rest, my company stock, my retirement accounts, a few investments that were harder to unwind quickly, those would take more time, but the bulk of it, the real money, the fuck you money, that was already gone. Already mine again instead of ours. I made coffee, dark, bitter, the way I used to drink it before Catherine told me I should switch to green tea for my health, and watched the sunrise over Beacon Hill. The snow had melted in places, leaving the streets patchy, no longer picture perfect. More honest, somehow. More real. Catherine came downstairs at 7:30, already dressed for her morning Pilates class, her face carefully made up even though she was just going to sweat it off. She kissed my cheek, dry, perfunctory, and poured herself coffee from the pot I'd made. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep, big day." "The investor meeting?" Among other things. She checked her phone, scrolling through something. "Mother wants to know if we can do dinner Friday night. That new French place in the Back Bay? Friday." The day I'd be serving her with divorce papers and walking out the door. "I might have to work late Friday," I said. "Tell her maybe next week." "You always have to work late." There it was again, that edge of complaint, of resentment for the job that paid for her Pilates and her French restaurants and her perfect life. "Sometimes I feel like I barely see you." "Good," I thought. "You won't have to see me at all soon." "I'll make it up to you," I said. "How about Saturday? We could drive out to the Vineyard House, spend the weekend, get away from the city." Her face lit up. The real smile, the one I'd fallen in love with before I'd realized it only appeared when I was offering her something she wanted. "Really? That would be amazing. It's been forever since we went out there." "Perfect. I'll arrange everything." A lie. The Vineyard House would be listed by then and I'd be gone. But she didn't need to know that yet. Didn't need to know that the man making her coffee, planning their weekend, kissing her goodbye as she left for Pilates, that man was already gone, already disappeared. He'd just left his body behind for a few more days. Peter Chen arrived at 10 a.m. sharp, carrying his iPad and his tablet and that particular energy that real estate agents have. Optimistic, aggressive, convinced that every property is a gold mine waiting for the right buyer. "David, good to see you." He shook my hand, then looked around the foyer with the professional eye of someone who spends their life evaluating spaces. "The house looks fantastic. You've really maintained it beautifully." "Catherine's done a lot with it," I said, which was true. She'd done everything with it except actually live in it, like a person instead of a set designer. We sat in the living room, more velvet, more antiques, and more evidence of Catherine's expensive taste, and Peter pulled up comps on his iPad. "So you mentioned you need to move quickly. Can I ask what's driving this?" Usually when clients sell a property like this, it's either they're upgrading, relocating, or he trailed off, too polite to finish the sentence, or divorcing. "Personal circumstances," I said. "I need to liquidate some assets, and the house is part of that. I'm thinking 45-day close, if possible, maybe 60. Can we make that happen?" Peter nodded slowly. "We can. But David, I have to be honest. The market's good right now, but it's not crazy. You bought this place for $3.4 million. With the renovations you've done, I'd say it's worth 4.2. There's maybe 4.3 in a perfect sale. But if you need to move in 45 days, we're probably looking at 3.9, maybe $4 million. You're leaving money on the table. How much is time worth? What? How much is it worth to me to have this done, close money in hand, in 45 days instead of 120? Peter calculated. Maybe $200,000, $300,000. Then it's worth it. List it at $395 million. Price it to move, but not so low that it looks distressed. I want serious buyers, cash buyers if possible, people who can close fast. Okay. He made notes on his iPad. And the vineyard property? Same thing, what's that worth? You paid 2.1 million 3 years ago, and the vineyard market's been hot. I'd say 2.6, maybe 2.7 million. With a fast sale, he calculated, $2.4 million in 45-day close. Do it. Peter looked up from his iPad. "David, that's 6.4 million on real estate you're selling at probably 500,000 below optimal value. I need to ask, are you sure about this?" No, I wasn't sure about any of it. Wasn't sure about throwing away my marriage, my life. everything I'd built over the past 5 years. Wasn't sure about reducing myself to a number on a balance sheet, a man who could disappear because he was nothing but his money. But I was sure about what I'd heard, sure about the disgust in Catherine's voice, the casual cruelty of that fat hippo, the way she'd laughed with her mother about enduring me for the lifestyle. I was sure about that. I'm sure, I said. When can you start showing it? I can have professional photos done tomorrow, listings live by Friday morning. Assuming the house stays this clean, I can start showings this weekend. This weekend, when Catherine thought we'd be at the Vineyard House together, rekindling whatever she thought we still had. This weekend, when I'd already begun. Perfect, I said. One more thing, I need all proceeds to go directly to my personal account, not the joint account. Can you set that up with title? Of course. Is Catherine... He stopped himself. Does your wife know about the sale? She will, I said. Soon enough. After Peter left, I spent the afternoon on the phone with my attorneys, not just Kowalski, but my corporate lawyers, my tax lawyers, everyone who'd helped me build this fortress of money and who would now help me tear it down. The company was the complicated part. I'd founded it 15 years ago, taken it public 8 years ago, and still owned about 18% of the stock, worth roughly $28 million at current trading prices. Catherine had no claim to it under the prenup, acquired before marriage, clearly separate property. But I needed to move it somewhere she couldn't see it, couldn't calculate against, couldn't use as ammunition. My corporate attorney, Sarah Kim, had a solution. We create a holding company, transfer the stock there. It's your stock, your company, totally legal. The holding company can be wherever you want. Delaware for simplicity, Cayman Islands for privacy. Your call. Cayman, I said. Privacy sounds good. Done. I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow afternoon. Next, the retirement accounts. I had about $12.4 million spread across various 401ks and IRAs, all untouchable by Catherine under the prenup and federal law. But I wanted them moved, restructured, placed with different custodians so they couldn't be tracked easily. My financial advisor, James Park, walked me through it. We can transfer these to new custodians, new accounts. It'll take a few weeks for everything to settle, but we can initiate the transfers now. Is this about... I'm sorry, I have to ask. Is this about the divorce? Everyone was asking. Everyone could see what was happening, even if they didn't understand why. Yes, I said, and I need everything done fast, but done right, and no mistakes, no openings for anyone to claim I'm hiding assets or acting in bad faith. Understood. David, for what it's worth, I've been your advisor for 10 years. I've watched you build this. Whatever happened, I'm sorry. I wasn't sorry, not anymore. I was just tired of being the fat hippo in someone else's story. By 6 p.m., I'd initiated or scheduled transfers for another $19 million. The total was now over $50 million, more than 70% of my liquid net worth, either moved or in motion, flowing from accounts Catherine knew about to accounts she didn't, from our life together to my life apart. She came home at 7 carrying shopping bags from Newbury Street. More clothes, probably. More things she didn't need, bought with money she didn't earn. Successful day? I asked. Very. I found the most amazing dress for the Symphony Gala. You're gonna love it. She kissed my cheek, the same dry, perfunctory kiss as this morning, and started unpacking her bags. Oh, and I ran into Melissa Hartwell. She said they just bought a place in Provence. Can you imagine a vacation home in France? Sounds nice. It sounds expensive, Catherine said, but her tone made it clear she thought expensive was wonderful, aspirational, something we should be doing. Maybe we should think about it. An international property? I've always loved France. Maybe, I said, watching her hold up the dress. Black, elegant, probably cost $3,000 and would look stunning on her. Would look stunning while she stood next to me at the symphony gala we'd never attend, in the life we'd never continue, planning the French vacation that would never happen. You seem distracted, she said. Everything okay with work? Just a lot going on. Big deals, complicated stuff. Well, don't work too hard. You look tired. She said it with concern, but I heard the subtext. You look old. You look fat. You look like something I have to endure. I'll try to get more rest, I said. That night, I slept in the guest room. Told Catherine I had early calls with Asia and didn't want to wake her. She barely seemed to notice. I lay there in the dark, in the room we used for guests we rarely had, in the house that would soon belong to someone else, and I felt nothing. just that cold clarity I'd been living with since Tuesday afternoon. The certainty that what I was doing was right, even if it was ruthless. Catherine had made a choice when she married me, had looked at what I was smart, successful, rich, and what I wasn't handsome, fit, interesting, and decided the first list outweighed the second, had decided a fat hippo with a fortune was better than being alone, better than working, better than building her own life. Now she'd learn what that choice actually cost. Friday morning arrived with crisp winter sunlight, the kind that makes everything look sharp and defined. I woke up at 5 a.m. in the guest room, my phone already buzzing with confirmations from Peter Chen. Listings going live in 2 hours. Already have 3 interested buyers lined up for Saturday showings. From Sarah Kim, holding company established. Stock transfer initiated. Should be complete by end of business today. From James Park, retirement account transfers submitted. Confirmations by Monday. From Kowalski, divorce papers ready. Process server can deliver at 2 p.m. today. You need to be out of the house before then. It was happening. After 3 days of planning, moving, restructuring, it was all actually happening. I packed one suitcase, not the expensive luggage Catherine had bought for our honeymoon trip to Italy, but an old duffel bag from my college days that I'd found in the back of a closet. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, passport, a few personal items that mattered. The watch my father gave me when I started my company. Photos of my family, my MIT class ring. Nothing else. Nothing from this house. This life, this marriage. I was leaving it all behind, just like I was leaving Catherine. Taking only what was mine, what I'd brought with me before she'd decided I was a fat hippo worth tolerating. I left the duffel bag in my car, hidden in the trunk where Catherine wouldn't see it during her morning Pilates routine. She came downstairs at 7:30, same as always, dressed in her Lululemon uniform, face made up, ready to perform the rituals of her life. Coffee, I asked, like I had every morning for 5 years. Please. She checked her phone while I poured. Oh, remember we have that dinner with the Hendersons tonight. You didn't forget, did you? I'd completely forgotten. Or rather, I'd known about it and dismissed it because by tonight, I'd be gone and the Hendersons would be wondering why Catherine showed up alone, why she seemed so shaken, why her perfect life suddenly had a fat hippo-shaped hole in it. About that, I said, something came up, a crisis with the Singapore office. I might need to fly out this afternoon. Today? David, we've had this dinner planned for 3 weeks. I know, I'm sorry, but this is important. She set down her phone, really looking at me for the first time in days. Everything's been important lately. The late meetings, the weird schedule, the sleeping in the guest room. What's going on? Nothing, just work. Is it? She studied my face, and for a moment I thought she saw it. Saw the plan, the anger, the cold calculation behind my tired eyes. You've been acting strange all week. I've been stressed. About what? About the fact that my wife thinks I'm a disgusting hippo. About the fact that I've wasted 5 years of my life on someone who only loves my bank account. About the fact that I'm about to blow up everything we've built because I finally have the courage to admit it was never real. Just business, I said. Nothing for you to worry about. She relaxed, satisfied. Because that's what I was to her. A business, a revenue stream, something to manage and optimize and not worry about as long as the money kept flowing. Okay, she said, but you'll try to make dinner? I'll try. Another lie. I was getting good at them. Catherine left for Pilates at 8. I watched from the window as she got into her Range Rover, another $90,000 expense I'd barely blinked at, and drove away. She'd be gone for 2 hours. Pilates, then coffee with friends, then probably some shopping. 2 hours to do what needed to be done. I went to my office and opened the safe hidden behind my bookshelf. Inside were documents, files, backups of everything. Corporate records, investment statements, tax returns, prenup agreements. I took it all, loaded it into a box, carried it out to my car. Then I wrote the note. I'd been drafting it in my head for 3 days, refining it, making it perfect. It needed to be devastating but not cruel, honest but not vindictive. It needed to hurt exactly as much as being called a fat hippo had hurt, but with the precision of truth rather than the sloppiness of emotion. I wrote it by hand on good paper with my fountain pen. Made it feel important, permanent. Made it feel like the ending it was. Catherine. I came home early on Tuesday. I heard what you said to your mother in the kitchen. Every word. That fat hippo disgusts me. I'm only interested in his fortune. You were right about one thing. The fortune is interesting. Interesting enough that I'm taking it with me. By the time you read this, the house will be listed for sale. The Martha's Vineyard property, too. All of our accounts, correction, all of my accounts, have been closed or transferred. Everything that's mine, which is everything that matters, is gone. You'll get what the prenup promised. 500,000. That's more than fair for 5 years of pretending to love me while you counted my money and critiqued my weight. I'm not angry. I'm just done. Done being the joke you tell your mother over tea. Done being the disgusting hippo you endure for the lifestyle. Done pretending that what we had was a marriage instead of a transaction. You wanted my fortune? Congratulations. You get to keep $500,000 of it. The remaining $68.5 million is coming with me. Don't try to find me. I've made sure there's nothing left to find. Consider this my gift to you. The truth you never had the courage to tell me to my face. David, I read it 3 times, checking for errors, for weaknesses, for anything Catherine could use against me. It was clean, factual, devastating, perfect. I sealed it in an envelope and left it on the kitchen counter, propped against the coffee maker where she'd find it as soon as she got home. Then I walked through the house one last time. The living room with its velvet sofas and curated art. The dining room where we'd hosted dinner parties for Catherine's friends. People who looked at me the same way she did. As a necessary accessory, useful but not desirable. The kitchen with its marble countertops and its La Cornue range. The room where I'd heard my wife destroy our marriage in a single sentence. I felt nothing. No nostalgia, no regret, no attachment to any of it. It was just stuff. Expensive stuff. Beautiful stuff. But still just stuff. And stuff could be replaced. Just like a fat hippo could be replaced once his fortune disappeared. My car was in the garage, engine running, trunk loaded with the one bag I was taking, and the box of documents I'd need. The process server would arrive at 2 p.m. to deliver the divorce papers. Catherine would get home around 11 a.m., find the note, call me, I wouldn't answer, call her mother, who would be just as shocked, call her friends, who would sympathize but secretly judge her for losing such a lucrative husband. And I'd be gone. I'd already checked into a hotel under a different name, paid cash for a week. After that, I hadn't decided yet. Maybe New York, maybe California, maybe somewhere international, somewhere warm, somewhere I could rebuild myself into something other than a disgusting hippo with a useful bank account. Somewhere I could be just me. I backed out of the garage at 10:47 a.m. The morning was bright and cold, the kind of day that makes Boston look like a postcard. I drove slowly down our street, past the other townhouses with their other perfect families and their other curated lives, past the cafe where Catherine got her lattes, past the park where we used to walk on Sunday mornings before I got too fat and she got too busy. I didn't look back. At exactly 11:23 a.m., my phone started ringing. Catherine. I let it go to voicemail. Then another call, her mother, voicemail. Then texts started flooding in. Catherine. What the fuck, David? Catherine. What is this note? Catherine. Call me right now. Catherine. This isn't funny. Catherine. David, answer your phone. I turned off my phone. At 2:14 p.m., Kowalski texted me from a different number. I'd given him my new phone. Paper served. She's been notified. You're officially in process. How are you holding up? I texted back. Fine. What happens next? Now we wait. She'll respond, probably with her own attorney. The prenup is solid, so unless she wants to spend a fortune fighting for more than she's entitled to, this should be straightforward. The house sales will take a few weeks to close, but everything else is done. You're free, Mr. Thornton. Free. I sat in my hotel room, a generic suite in Cambridge, far enough from Beacon Hill that I wouldn't accidentally run into anyone I knew, and thought about that word, free. I'd been chasing freedom my whole life. Freedom from poverty. My parents had struggled and I'd promised myself I'd never struggle. Freedom from mediocrity. I'd built a company that mattered, that changed things. Freedom from obscurity. I'd made my fortune, made my name, made myself into someone who couldn't be ignored. But I'd never had freedom from loneliness. From the fear that no one would love me unless I was successful enough, rich enough, good enough. From the suspicion that Catherine had confirmed that I was only valuable for what I had, not who I was. That's what the wait had been about, really. Not stress, not long hours, not takeout inconvenience. The weight had been armor, insulation, a test. Would anyone love me like this? Would anyone see past the successful exterior to the person underneath and decide he was worth knowing? Catherine had answered that question, definitively. And now I was free to ask a different question. Who was I without her? Without the marriage, the house, the life I'd built to prove I deserved to be loved. I had 69 million to figure it out. Dr. Chen had asked me in our last session if I felt like I'd gotten revenge. Is that what you think this is? I'd asked. Revenge? I think you left your wife a note designed to hurt her as much as she hurt you. I think you dismantled your shared life in a way that maximized her loss and your freedom. I think you disappeared specifically so she couldn't respond, couldn't fight back, couldn't do anything but sit with the consequences of what she said. She'd paused, then added, "That sounds like revenge to me." And she wasn't wrong. I'd be lying if I said there wasn't satisfaction in knowing Catherine had come home to that note, had read my words with the same sick shock I'd felt standing in the mudroom, had felt the ground drop out from under her perfect life the way mine had dropped out from under me. But it was more than revenge. It was correction, an accounting, a balancing of the books. Catherine had married me under false pretenses, had promised to love me, honor me, cherish me, and then privately mocked me, used me, tolerated me for my money while finding me disgusting as a person. That was fraud. Emotional fraud, maybe, but fraud nonetheless. And I'd simply enforced the contract she'd actually signed. The prenup that said if our marriage ended, she got 500,000 and nothing more. Was it revenge that she'd expected more? That she'd thought she could have both the disgust and the money? Could privately despise me while publicly enjoying my fortune? Or was it just consequences? I think, I told Dr. Chen, that revenge would be destroying her, taking everything, leaving her with nothing, making sure she suffered. And you didn't do that? I left her with $500,000. That's more money than most people see in their lifetime. That's a fresh start, a safety net, a chance to build something real instead of just living off someone else's money. But you took your fortune. It was my fortune. It was always my fortune. She didn't build it, didn't earn it, didn't contribute to it in any meaningful way. She just existed next to it like a parasite. And when I found out she was only interested in the money, I removed the money. That's not revenge, that's just honesty. Dr. Chen had smiled at that. You've thought about this a lot. I've had time to think. And do you regret it? The way you left, the note, any of it? No, and I didn't. Even now, sitting on my beach in Costa Rica, watching the sun set over the Pacific while somewhere in Boston, Catherine was probably still trying to understand how her perfect life had disappeared. I didn't regret it. What I regretted was not seeing it sooner, not recognizing the signs, the small cruelties, the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention, not having the courage to admit that I'd married someone who saw me as an ATM with a pulse. What I regretted was wasting 5 years of my life trying to be good enough for someone who was only interested in my money. But the leaving, the note, the carefully planned dismantling of everything we'd built together, that I'd do again in a heartbeat. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. Singapore deal's done, another $4 million in the bank. When are you coming back? I thought about that. Coming back. Returning to Boston, to my company, to my life as David Thornton, tech entrepreneur, millionaire, the man who'd built something that mattered. But that life was what had gotten me here. Overweight, overworked, married to someone who despised me. That life was the one where success meant sacrificing everything else, health, happiness, on the self-respect and pursuit of a number on a balance sheet. I didn't want to go back to that life. But I didn't want to hide in Costa Rica forever either. I texted back, not sure, still thinking. About what? About what comes next. Come on, man. You can't just disappear. You've got responsibilities. The company, your family, your actual life. He was right, of course. I couldn't stay here forever, couldn't keep running from the consequences of my choices. At some point, I'd have to go back, face the music, deal with whatever fallout remained from my dramatic exit. But not yet. Not until I'd figured out who I was without the weight, without Catherine's contempt, without the pressure to be successful enough to be loved. without the armor I'd built around myself over 42 years of trying to prove I mattered. I turned off my phone and went for a walk on the beach. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange and beautiful. There were other people on the beach, locals, tourists, people living their lives without knowing or caring who I was, what I was worth, what I'd left behind. A kid was flying a kite, his father helping him keep it steady in the wind. A couple was walking hand in hand, laughing about something. An old woman was collecting shells, examining each one carefully before adding it to her bucket. Normal people, living normal lives, happy without millions, without townhouses in Beacon Hill, without the trappings of success that I'd thought mattered so much. And I realized something. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not physically light, I still had 50 pounds to lose if I wanted to get back to my college weight. But mentally, emotionally, I felt like I'd put down a burden I didn't know that I'd been carrying. The burden of being enough. Enough for Catherine, enough for her friends, enough for Boston society, enough to deserve love, respect, basic human decency. I'd spent 5 years trying to be enough, and the whole time I'd already been more than enough, just for the wrong person. Catherine hadn't deserved me. Hadn't deserved my money, my effort, my love. She deserved exactly what she got. The legal minimum from a prenup she'd signed without thinking, because she'd been too busy calculating what she could get out of me to consider what she might lose. And I deserved what I was getting now. Freedom, space, the chance to rebuild myself into someone who didn't need validation from anyone else, who didn't need to buy love with money or success or sacrifice. I walked until the sun disappeared below the horizon, until the beach was dark and quiet and mine. Then I went back to my simple house with its simple furniture and its view of the ocean, and I slept better than I had in years. 4 months after I left Boston, Catherine's attorney called Kowalski. My client wants to talk, the attorney said. She's willing to accept the prenup terms, but she wants to speak with Mr. Thornton directly, just once, 5 minutes. Kowalski called me. It's probably a bad idea. Anything she says could be used to reopen negotiations, claim emotional distress. Who knows what? But legally, I can't stop you if you want to talk to her. What do you think she wants? Closure, maybe? Or one last attempt to get more money? Hard to say. I thought about it. Thought about Catherine, about what she'd say, about whether I wanted to hear it. Set it up, I said. But recorded, right? Legal protection? Absolutely. I'll be on the line too. And David, don't admit anything, don't promise anything, don't let her manipulate you. I won't. The call was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. Costa Rica time. I was nervous in a way I hadn't been since the day I'd left the note and driven away. What could Catherine possibly say to me now? What was left to say? At 2 p.m. exactly, my phone rang. Mr. Thornton, Kowalski said, I have Catherine and her attorney on the line. Everything is being recorded per your agreement. You can begin. Silence for a moment. Then Catherine's voice, and it was wrong somehow. Smaller, shakier, not the confident tone I remembered. David, I'm here. I... She paused. I don't know how to start this. Then don't. Just say what you need to say. Okay, okay. I heard her take a breath. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. For what I said, for how I treated you, for all of it. I didn't respond. Couldn't, really. Sorry wasn't enough, would never be enough. But hearing her say it still meant something. I've been thinking, Catherine continued, about what happened, about why I said those things, and I realized I was scared. Scared of what? Of you. Of us. Of the fact that I'd married someone I didn't really love, and I didn't know how to admit that to myself, so I blamed you instead. I made you into this thing I could despise, this obstacle, so I wouldn't have to face the truth. Which was that I married you for the wrong reasons. Not because I loved you, but because I was 32 and scared I'd never find anyone. And you were successful and kind, and you seemed like the safe choice. And then I resented you for being the safe choice, for not being exciting or passionate or whatever I thought I deserved. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. I turned you into a villain in my own head, she said. The boring husband, the fat guy, the obstacle to the life I thought I should have. And the thing is, David, you weren't any of those things. You were just a good man who loved me, and I couldn't handle that because I didn't love you back. And instead of being honest, I was cruel. You called me a fat hippo. I know, and I can't take it back, and I hate myself for it. You have no idea how much I hate myself. Good, I said, and I meant it. You should hate yourself for that. I do, I really do. And I know you're never going to forgive me, and I don't blame you. But, David, I need you to know something. The woman who said those things, the woman who was so awful to you, that wasn't really me. That was just the scared, shallow version of me who couldn't be honest about what I wanted. And what did you want? I don't know. I thought I wanted the lifestyle, the money, the perfect Instagram life. But all of that's gone now, and you know what? I'm not devastated, I'm relieved. Because pretending to be happy was exhausting, and pretending to love you when I didn't, it was destroying both of us. She paused, then added, the divorce is the best thing you could have done, for both of us. I just wish you'd done it differently. How should I have done it? I don't know. Talked to me, told me you knew, given me a chance to explain before you just disappeared? And what would you have explained? That you actually did love me? You just also thought I was disgusting? No. I would have told you the truth. That I didn't love you. That I'd made a mistake, that we should end it before we wasted any more of each other's time. But you didn't give me that chance. You just left and took everything and made me the villain. You were the villain. Was I? Or was I just honest about feelings you didn't want to hear? That stopped me. Because she had a point, didn't she? Catherine had been awful, had said terrible things, had revealed herself to be someone I couldn't stay married to. But she'd also been honest, brutally, cruelly honest, but honest nonetheless. And I'd responded by blowing up her life. You didn't just leave me, Catherine continued. You humiliated me. You left that note where anyone could find it. You disappeared without explanation. You made sure everyone knew I'd married you for money. Do you know what that did to my reputation, my friendships, my relationship with my mother? I don't care about your reputation. I know, that's the problem. You didn't care about anything except hurting me as much as I hurt you. And you succeeded. Congratulations. You got your revenge. You proved you're the one with the power, the one with the money, the one who gets to win. Are you happy now? I don't know, I said honestly. Are you? Silence, then, no, I'm not happy. I'm broke and alone, and everyone thinks I'm a gold digger, and I probably deserve all of it. But at least I'm not pretending anymore. At least I know who I am now. A woman who made bad choices and has to live with them. Catherine, I'm not asking for more money, she interrupted. I'm not trying to change the prenup or reopen negotiations. I wanted you to hear me say I'm sorry, and I wanted to tell you that I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you find someone who actually loves you, who sees you for who you are, and thinks that's enough. Because it is enough, David. You are enough. You always were. I was just too broken to see it. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, could picture her sitting somewhere with her attorney, probably in an office not unlike Kowalski's, having this awful conversation because she thought she owed it to me. Maybe she did. Maybe we both owed each other some version of the truth we've been too scared to tell while we were married. Thank you, I said finally, for the apology. It doesn't change anything, but thank you. I know it doesn't change anything. I just needed to say it. Catherine, yes? I hope you find what you're looking for, too. I hope the $500,000 isn't enough to give you a fresh start. And I hope you learn to be honest about what you want before you hurt someone else the way you hurt me. She laughed, but it was bitter. I think I've learned that lesson. Trust me. Good. Then something useful came from all this. Yeah, she said. Maybe it did. Kowalski ended the call a few minutes later after Catherine and her attorney signed off. I sat there in my Costa Rican beach house, staring at my phone, trying to process what I'd just heard. Catherine was sorry, really, genuinely sorry. And more than that, she was honest. Maybe for the first time in our entire relationship. She'd admitted she'd married me for the wrong reasons, admitted she'd never loved me, admitted she'd been cruel because she couldn't face her own choices. And somehow hearing that was worse than hearing her call me a fat hippo. Because disgust, I could understand. Disgust I could get angry at, could use as fuel for the cold revenge I'd taken. But honesty? Honesty was complicated. Honesty meant Catherine wasn't a villain, wasn't even particularly evil. She was just a scared woman who'd made bad choices and hurt someone in the process. Just like I'd hurt her by leaving the way I did. You okay? Kowalski asked after Catherine hung up. I don't know. She apologized. So I heard. Does that change anything? Should it? That's up to you. But legally, nothing changes. The prenup stands, the divorce proceeds, she gets her $500,000, and you get your freedom. Her apology doesn't affect that. I know. David, can I give you some advice? Not as your attorney, but as someone who's been doing this for a long time? Sure. Forgiveness isn't about her. It's about you. Whether you forgive Catherine or not, whether you accept her apology or dismiss it, that's about what you need to heal, not about what she deserves. What if I don't know what I need? Then you keep swimming in the ocean and sitting on the beach and talking to your therapist until you figure it out. You've got time and you've got money. Use both. He was right, of course. I had all the time in the world and all the money I needed to figure out who I was and what I wanted and whether Catherine's apology changed anything about how I felt. But sitting there in my beach house, listening to the waves crash against the shore, I realized something. I didn't hate Catherine anymore. I was angry, hurt, disappointed, betrayed, all of those things. But I didn't hate her. Because hate requires energy, and I was tired of spending energy on someone who'd already taken 5 years of my life. What I wanted now wasn't revenge or vindication or even forgiveness. What I wanted was peace. 6 months after I left Boston, I flew back to New York for a meeting with my board of directors. I'd been avoiding it, avoiding them, avoiding the company, avoiding anything that connected me to the life I'd left behind. But Marcus had finally worn me down. Man, you're still the largest shareholder. You can't just ignore that forever. The board wants to see you, wants to know you're okay, wants to understand the plan. What plan? Your plan, our plan, the company's plan. Whether you're coming back or selling out or what. So I'd flown to New York, checked into a hotel I'd never stayed at before, and prepared myself to face the consequences of my dramatic exit. The board meeting was in our Manhattan office, high floor, glass walls, view of the city that was supposed to inspire confidence and ambition. I'd picked the office myself 5 years ago. When the company went public and suddenly we needed a presence in New York, needed to look like we belonged among the big players. Now, walking into that conference room, I felt like an imposter. Not because of the company. I'd built that, earned my place there, knew the business better than anyone, but because the person who'd chosen this office, who'd cared about appearances and belonging and proving he deserved a seat at the table, that person was gone. The board stood when I walked in. 9 people, 7 men, 2 women, all of them successful, all of them. People I'd personally recruited or approved over the years. My CFO, Marcus. My CTO, Jennifer. 5 independent directors. 2 venture capital partners who'd invested early. They were looking at me like I was a stranger. To be fair, I probably looked like one. I'd lost 40 pounds since January. My hair was longer, grayer, untamed by the expensive barber I used to see every 2 weeks. I was wearing jeans and a button-down shirt instead of my usual suit. I looked, Marcus had told me on the phone, like a completely different person. David, Jennifer said, and I heard the relief in her voice. It's good to see you. Good to see you too, and we sat. There was an awkward silence while everyone figured out how to start this conversation. Finally, Marcus took charge. Look, let's just be direct. David, you disappeared 6 months ago. You sold your house, filed for divorce, and dropped off the grid. You've missed 3 board meetings. You haven't been involved in any major decisions, and frankly, we've all been worried sick. I'm sorry, I said one. I had to deal with some personal things. We know about the divorce, Jennifer said gently. Marcus told us. We're sorry. Don't be. It was the right move. One of the independent directors, Richard, an older guy who'd run 3 successful startups before joining our board, leaned forward. David, we're not here to judge your personal life. We're here to understand what happens next. Are you coming back? Are you staying involved? Do we need to plan for new leadership? Good question. I'd been asking myself the same thing for 6 months. I don't know, and I said. I built this company. It's my life's work. But the person who built it, the person who worked 80-hour weeks and sacrificed everything for success, I'm not that person anymore. I don't want to be that person anymore. What do you want to be? I don't know yet. I'm figuring that out. That's fair, Richard said. But the company needs to know. The employees need to know. The investors need to know. We can't just operate in limbo while you figure yourself out. He was right. I'd been selfish, disappearing without a plan, without considering how it would affect everyone who'd built this company with me. You're right, I said. So here's what I'm thinking. I'll step back from day-to-day operations. Marcus becomes CEO. He's been doing the job anyway for the past 6 months. Jennifer, you're COO. I'll stay on the board, stay involved in major decisions, but I'm not coming back to run things. Not now, maybe not ever. The room was quiet. Then Marcus said, "Are you sure? This is your company, man. You built it. You can't just walk away." "I'm not walking away. I'm just stepping back, creating space for other things, for myself." "What other things?" I thought about my mornings swimming in Costa Rica, about my afternoon walks on the beach, about my therapy sessions with Dr. Chen, where I was slowly learning to separate my worth from my work, my value from my bank account. Life, I said. I want to have a life, a real one, not just a resume of accomplishments and a bank account full of money I never spend. Jennifer smiled. "That's the healthiest thing I've heard you say in years." "Yeah, well, it took losing everything to figure it out." "You didn't lose everything," Marcus said. "You still have the company. You still have your money. You still have us." "I know, but I lost the thing I thought mattered most. The marriage, the picture-perfect life, the proof that I'd made it. And it turns out, losing that was the best thing that ever happened to me." We spent the next hour working through logistics. Marcus would become CEO with a compensation package that reflected his new role. Jennifer would get a promotion and a raise. I'd stay on as chairman of the board, involved but not in charge, present but not consumed. It felt right, felt like the beginning of something new rather than the end of what I'd built. After the meeting, Marcus and I grabbed coffee at a place around the corner. Just the two of us, no board members, no corporate formality, just two friends who'd been through hell together. "You look good," Marcus said. "Different, but good." "I feel different." "Better?" "Yeah, better, lighter. Like I've been carrying around this weight." The marriage, the expectations on the need to prove I was successful enough to deserve love. All of it. And now it's just gone, and I feel like I can breathe again. Marcus nodded. "Catherine fucked you up, man. I always thought she was cold, but I didn't realize how bad it was." "She wasn't all bad. She was just wrong for me. Wrong for anyone, probably, until she figures out what she actually wants instead of what she thinks she should want. You're more generous than I'd be. I'm tired of being angry. Anger takes energy, and I'd rather spend that energy on figuring out what comes next." "Which is what?" "Good question. I'd been thinking about it for months, but I still didn't have a clear answer. Just fragments, pieces, ideas that might become something if I gave them time to develop. I think," I started, then paused. "I think I want to build something new. Not a company, not a fortune, just something that matters, something that helps people, something I can be proud of that has nothing to do with making money." "Like what?" "I don't know yet. A foundation, maybe? Something focused on mental health or men's issues or just helping people who feel trapped by success and don't know how to ask for help." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "That's oddly specific." "It's my life, man. I spent 20 years chasing money, and when I finally got it, I realized it didn't solve anything. Didn't make me happy, didn't make me loved, didn't make me whole. Just made me rich and miserable. And now I'm rich and learning to be happy, which feels like progress." We talked for another hour about the company, about life, about what it meant to be successful when you'd already achieved everything you thought you wanted, about how hard it was to admit you were lonely, even when you were surrounded by people, about how marriage could be the loneliest thing in the world when you realize the person next to you didn't actually know you. "You going back to Costa Rica?" Marcus asked as we were leaving. "For a while. I like it there. It's simple, quiet, far from everything that reminds me of who I used to be. And then? And then I'll figure out where home is, because it's not Boston anymore. Not that house, not that life, not anything Catherine and I built together. I need to find somewhere that's mine, that I chose for me, not for appearance or convenience or because it was the right address." "You'll find it," Marcus said. "You're good at building things, even when you're starting from scratch." He was right. I'd built one fortune from nothing. I could build one life from nothing, too. It just might take time. 1 year after I left Boston, the divorce was finalized. Catherine got her $500,000. I got my freedom. We both got the truth we'd been avoiding for 5 years, that we'd never really been married, just two people occupying the same space, pretending at connection while building separate lives. I'd moved back to the States, not Boston, but San Francisco. Bought a condo with a view of the bay, nothing too fancy, nothing too expensive. Just a place that felt like mine, that I chose because I liked it, not because it impressed anyone. I'd lost 60 pounds, not that through dieting or extreme measures, just through living differently. Swimming every morning, cooking real food, treating my body like something that mattered instead of just a vehicle for my brain. I felt better at 43 than I had at 35, stronger and healthier and more comfortable in my own skin. The company was thriving under Marcus's leadership. Stock price was up, revenue was growing. We'd just closed a major acquisition that expanded our market share significantly. My stake was now worth about $42 million, up from $20 million when I'd left. I'd made $14 million by doing nothing except getting out of my own way. But the money wasn't what mattered anymore. What mattered was the foundation I'd started, the Thornton Foundation for Men's Mental Health and Well-Being. $50 million in initial funding, all from my personal fortune. A mission to help men who were struggling with the same things I'd struggled with. The pressure to succeed, the loneliness of achievement, the difficulty of admitting vulnerability, the weight of expectations. We'd launched 3 months ago with a website, a hotline, and partnerships with therapists around the country who specialized in men's issues. We funded counseling for men who couldn't afford it, ran support groups for executives dealing with burnout, created resources for men going through divorce or career changes or just trying to figure out who they were when they weren't defined by their work. The response had been overwhelming. Thousands of calls, hundreds of men sharing stories that sounded like mine, successful on paper, miserable in reality, trapped by the belief that admitting struggle meant admitting failure. I'd found my purpose, not in building another company, not in making more money, but in taking my pain and turning it into something useful for other people. Dr. Chen would have been proud. Actually, Dr. Chen was proud. I still talked to her twice a week, even though I didn't need to anymore. The therapy had evolved into something else, strategic thinking about the foundation, philosophical discussions about masculinity and success, explorations of what it meant to build a life that mattered. You've come a long way, she'd said in our last session. A year ago, you were a man who'd lost everything. Now you're a man who's found himself. I didn't lose everything, I'd corrected. I lost one thing, a marriage that was never real. Everything else, the money, the company, my self-respect, I kept that. And that's important to remember, because a lot of people would have let Catherine's betrayal define them, would have become bitter or angry or convinced that all relationships were transactional. But you didn't. You took the pain and transformed it into purpose. I'm still angry sometimes, I'd admitted, still hurt by what she said, how she saw me. Of course you are. Healing isn't linear. But the question is, are you letting that anger run your life? Or are you running your life despite the anger? I thought about that, about the foundation, about my morning swims, about the life I was building in San Francisco, about the date I'd gone on last week with a woman I'd met at a charity event. Just coffee, just conversation, just two people getting to know each other without pretense or calculation. Her name was Rachel. She was a teacher, 40 years old, divorced, no kids. She'd laughed when I told her about the foundation, said it was the sexiest thing she'd ever heard. A rich guy using his money to help people instead of just buying more stuff. We talked for 3 hours about books, about life, about what it meant to start over in your 40s. She'd asked about my divorce, and I told her the basics, not the details, not the fat hippo comment, just that we'd grown apart and wanted different things. That must have been hard, she'd said. It was, but it was also necessary. I was trying to be someone I wasn't, and it nearly destroyed me. And now? Now I'm just trying to be myself, whoever that is. She'd smiled. I think that's brave. We were going out again this weekend. Dinner, nothing fancy. Just a chance to see if the connection we'd felt over coffee was real or just the excitement of meeting someone new. I didn't know what would happen. Didn't know if Rachel and I would work out. Didn't know if I was ready for another relationship. Didn't know if I'd ever be able to trust someone the way I'd trusted Catherine. But I was willing to try, willing to be vulnerable again, to risk getting hurt again, to believe that not everyone was like Catherine, that love wasn't always transactional, that I was enough just as I was. That felt like progress. My phone buzzed, a text from my brother. Mom wants to know if you're coming for Thanksgiving. She's worried about you being alone. I smiled. I wouldn't be alone. I'd invited Rachel, actually, told her I wanted her to meet my family if she was comfortable with that. She'd said yes, said it sounded nice, said she was curious about the man I used to be versus the man I'd become. I texted back, "Tell mom I'm bringing a friend and tell her I'm good, really good." "About damn time," my brother replied. "We've been worried." "I know, but you don't have to worry anymore. I'm figuring it out." And I was. Slowly, painfully, imperfectly. But I was figuring out who David Thornton was when he wasn't trying to be anything other than himself. I was figuring out what it meant to be successful when success wasn't measured in dollars or square footage or social media likes, but in morning swims and honest conversations and the satisfaction of helping someone else avoid the mistakes you made. I was figuring out what it meant to be loved, really loved, for who you were instead of what you had. And I was figuring out that Catherine had done me a favor in the end. Not intentionally, not kindly, but still. She'd forced me to confront the truth about my life, about my marriage, about the way I'd been living. That fat hippo comment, as cruel as it was, had saved me, had given me the courage to leave, to rebuild, to become someone I could actually be proud of instead of someone I was just trying to impress. So, in a strange way, I was grateful. Grateful for the pain, for the betrayal, for the moment in the mudroom when my world fell apart. Because that moment had given me permission to build something new, something real, something mine. The note arrived on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office at the foundation. We'd grown to 20 employees now, operating in 15 cities, helping thousands of men every year, when my assistant brought in the mail. Most of it was routine. Donation acknowledgments, partnership inquiries, thank you letters from men whose lives we'd helped change. But one envelope stood out, cream-colored, expensive paper, my name written in elegant script. Catherine's handwriting. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. We hadn't spoken since that phone call 3 years ago. Hadn't had any contact except through lawyers finalizing the divorce. I'd moved on, built a new life, barely thought about her anymore. But seeing her handwriting brought it all back. The snow, the mudroom, the fat hippo comment that had changed everything. I opened the envelope. Inside was a short letter, handwritten on matching cream stationery. "David, I don't know if you'll read this, or if you'll throw it away without reading, or if you even care what I have to say anymore. But I need to write it anyway, because I owe you more than just that phone call. 3 years ago, I'm getting married. His name is James. He's a high school teacher. He makes $60,000 a year. He's kind and funny, and he loves me for who I am, not for anything I can give him or any life I can provide. And I love him the same way. We met at a community center where I've been volunteering, teaching art classes to underprivileged kids. I started doing it because I needed to do something with my life, something that mattered, something that wasn't about money or status or Instagram. And I found purpose, joy, myself. I wanted you to know that. One wanted you to know that the $500,000 you left me, I used it to go back to school, to get my teaching certificate, and to build a life that's actually mine instead of just borrowed from someone else's fortune. I wanted you to know that you were right. Leaving me was the best thing you could have done, for both of us, because I was drowning in that life we had, pretending to be someone I wasn't, living a lie I'd convinced myself was happiness. And I wanted to say thank you. I know that's strange, thanking the man whose life I helped destroy. But you gave me something I never would have found on my own. The truth. The courage to admit I was living wrong, to start over, to build something real. I heard about your foundation, about the work you're doing. I'm proud of you. Not proud like a wife or an ex-wife, just proud as one human to another. You took your pain and made it matter. That's incredible. I hope you're happy, David. I hope you found someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved. And I hope you've forgiven yourself for whatever you think you did wrong, because you didn't do anything wrong. You were just a good man who married the wrong woman. Be well, Catherine. I read it twice, then set it down on my desk. Catherine was getting married to a teacher, making $60,000 a year. She'd found love, real love, the kind that wasn't about money or status or anything except two people choosing each other. And she was happy, genuinely, actually happy. I felt relief. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even closure exactly. Just relief that Catherine had found what she was looking for, that the woman who had called me a disgusting hippo 3 years ago had grown into someone who could write this letter with such honesty and grace. My phone rang. Rachel, my girlfriend of 2 years, the woman I'd met over coffee and fallen for slowly, carefully, honestly. Hey, she said, are you still at the office? Yeah, just finishing up. Want to grab dinner at that Thai place you like? Sounds perfect. I'll meet you there in 30. See you then. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and looked at Catherine's letter again. 3 years ago, I'd left her a note designed to hurt, to devastate, to make her feel a fraction of what I'd felt standing in that mudroom. And now she'd written me a note designed to, what? Apologize? Explain? Share her happiness? Maybe all three. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. Not to save it, not to treasure it, just to acknowledge it. Catherine had been part of my story, had shaped who I'd become. And this letter was the final chapter of something we'd both moved beyond. I left the office and drove to the Thai restaurant. Rachel was already there, sitting at our usual table, smiling when she saw me. She'd moved in with me 6 months ago, and we were talking about marriage, real marriage, the kind built on honesty and respect and the simple joy of being together. You okay? She asked as I sat down. You look thoughtful. I got a letter today from my ex-wife. Catherine? Rachel knew the story. I told her everything early on, figured if we were going to build something real, it needed to be built on truth. What did she want? To tell me she's getting married, to thank me for leaving her, to say she's happy. How do you feel about that? I thought about it. How did I feel? About Catherine's happiness, about her new life, and about the fact that she'd found love with a teacher making a fraction of what I made? I'm glad, I said, and I'm really genuinely glad she found what she was looking for. That's very mature of you. Or maybe I'm just happy enough with my own life that I can afford to be generous with hers. Rachel smiled and reached across the table to take my hand. Either way, I'm proud of you. For what? For being the kind of man who can get a letter from his ex-wife and feel glad instead of bitter. For taking something terrible and turning it into something beautiful. For being you. You know, I said, 3 years ago I would have thought that was just flattery. Just words someone was saying to make me feel better about myself. But now I think I actually believe it. I think I'm actually becoming someone worth being proud of. You've always been that person, David. You just couldn't see it. Maybe she was right. Maybe I'd always been enough, always been worthy, always been someone who deserved love and respect and basic human decency. I just needed to lose everything to figure that out. We had dinner, green curry and pad thai and spring rolls we shared between us, and talked about our weekend plans, about the Foundation's new partnership with a veterans organization, about the trip to Italy we were planning for next month. We talked about everything except Catherine, except the past, except the man I used to be. Because that man was gone. He'd disappeared 3 years ago on a snowy Tuesday afternoon, standing in a mudroom, hearing words that destroyed one life and created another. And in his place was someone new. Someone lighter, happier, more honest. Someone who swam every morning and ran a foundation and loved a woman who loved him back. Someone who'd learned that the best revenge wasn't taking everything and disappearing. It was building something better. Later that night, lying in bed with Rachel asleep beside me, I thought about Catherine's letter, about her happiness, her new life, her teaching job, and her fiance who made $60,000 a year, about the fact that she'd found love by walking away from money, just like I had. And I realized something. We'd both been saved by that moment in the mudroom. Both freed by the truth neither of us had wanted to admit. Both given a chance to start over, to build real lives instead of just performing the roles we thought we were supposed to play. And Catherine had called me a fat hippo, had said I disgusted her, had reduced 5 years of marriage to a cruel punchline shared over tea with her mother. And I'd responded by taking everything and leaving nothing but a note and a prenup and the truth she couldn't deny. We'd both been cruel. We'd both been hurt. We'd both made mistakes, but we'd both survived, both grown, both found our way to something better than what we'd had together. That was enough. More than enough. That was everything. I closed my eyes and fell asleep, peaceful and light and free. The fat hippo had finally learned to swim.